Hey guys, for decades now, Pakistan has strategically relied on its allies in terms of financial support and easing debt burdens to achieve some semblance of stability and prosperity. However, I'm afraid with the severe impact of poor governance, dismal policies and rampant corruption, which has what led the country to the precipice of an economic turmoil of dire consequences, it is seen that Pakistan's bilateral relationships with its allies are collapsing as none of them are willing to bail them out anymore. At the very least, financial aid and commitments have been drastically limited, and for good reasons. For years now, Pakistan's so-called friends have failed to see an inch of permanent economic progress. They now know that the country is incapable of recovering from the financial disasters it has created for itself. My name is Ali, and I am a striving economist and concerned citizen. Today, I'm going to open Pakistan's Pandora's box of failures. Since the former Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, was ousted, Khan waged a relentless campaign against some of the most powerful stakeholders of the country, that is, the military establishment and the political elite, challenging the status quo. However, this 14-month-long tussle has proven to bring a series of unfortunate events for Pakistan, further spiraling the country's economic stability into oblivion. Experts have forewarned that there are going to be dire consequences if remedial measures aren't taken anytime soon. On the verge of default, and with the growing reluctance of the International Monetary Fund to bail the country out yet again, the current regime's sole challenge is expanding its revenue collection by introducing solid political and tax reforms across the board. Ever since the birth of Pakistan, the country's economy has been subject to tumultuous situations thanks to faltering reforms, federal policies, stakeholder influence, etc. Looking at it from a purely economic standpoint, one could argue that, historically, Pakistan was doing a bit better 30 to 40 years ago compared to today. Under General Ayub Khan's regime from 1858 to 1969, Pakistan managed to achieve a consistent growth rate of 5.82%. Then came Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was elected as the fourth president of Pakistan in 1971. Mr. Bhutto nationalized thriving industries, putting many out of business, and the rest is history. Fast forward to the year 2000, we saw the rise of General Pervez Musharraf, and during his reign as the president of Pakistan for 8 years, Pakistan's economy did see some improvement, especially after the harrowing events of 9/11 and the subsequent war on terror. But as always, the Pakistani economy could not materialize into anything stable or thriving. Then came the PMLN's turn to rule, with Nawaz Sharif as the Prime Minister of Pakistan for a third time. During his regime, 2013 to 2018, Pakistan's economy slightly strengthened owing to strong bilateral trade and relationships and the subsequent support from the IMF loan programs. However, the economy yet again plunged into economic turmoil, suffering massive current account deficits, debt traps, and drastic decline in exports. After Imran Khan was elected as the Prime Minister of Pakistan in 2018, the country saw immense GDP growth per year, achieving a growth rate of 5.84% shortly before it was hit by the COVID-19 outbreak. However, Khan did manage to succeed in maintaining GDP growth to around 6% annually before he was ousted in 2022 after having served a little of 3 years as Prime Minister. Pakistan is blessed with vast reserves of valuable minerals with a covered crop area of more than 600,000 kilometers squared thanks to its strategic geographic position and condition. Plus, a significant portion of the economy is supported by the agricultural industry of the country. Pakistan is endowed with significant salt reserves, followed by gold, copper, coal, and chromite reserves, in addition to several other types of untapped minerals. Despite being an agricultural and mineral economy, Pakistan has failed to implement reforms and policies to broaden its mineral exports, and it's unfortunate to see that the current GDP growth in the mineral sector is below 2%. I view Pakistan as more of a kleptocracy than a democracy, and for good reason. You see, historically, the country's political machinery has been under the iron grip and influence of two major dynastic political parties, the PPP and the PMLN. and a lot of what's going on today can be rightly assumed to be the result of these parties' unhealed and stubborn political policies, which mostly favour the elite. Their agenda is solely based on the accumulation of power and wealth, not the result and long-term growth and prosperity of Pakistan. However, it is also safe to say, or not so safe to say, both of these parties have been eternally blessed by another powerful stakeholder, the Pakistani military establishment. And for decades, the country has been ruled by this trio of unrelenting forces, unchallenged and unprovoked, until now. The corruption in Pakistani politics is in itself a never-ending cancer that has spread throughout the entirety of its political and judicial machinery, from politicians and judges to the police and other law enforcement agencies. Corruption runs unchallenged and rampant. Even the healthcare and education sectors seem to be riddled with political influence, greed and bribery. Economies, especially developing economies, that are fused with rampant corruption and deliberate mismanagement, which primarily involves misappropriation of funds, political influence, and abuse of power in the shape of financial or authority to acquire specific one-point agendas and goals using unfair means, can never allow an economy to prosper or innovate. Economies with corruption as its lifeblood will never be able to function adequately, because breaking the law in turn completely squanders the natural principles of a functioning democracy and economy. Corruption can only destroy and cause gradual societal destruction. Unfortunately, Pakistan has always been neck-deep in political unrest and tyrannical policies throughout its history. Despite having access to unimaginable potential in the form of natural resources, the country's deliberate and stubborn-like policies that are designed to benefit the 1% have led the economy towards utter and potentially irreversible stagnation. In fact, I can challenge that you won't have any shred of diligence, governance, and accountability in any sector of the current regime. Owing to flawed policies, misappropriation of foreign aid, disastrous debt traps, rising inflation, and political unrest, Pakistan is still optimistic about seeking help from its age-old allies, the US and the Middle East. However, what's troublesome is that even local business leaders are liquidating their assets and operations and are pouring their money into either real estate or transferring it abroad. There's no doubt Pakistan has ridiculously failed to provide both local and international businesses with any enabling or meaningful platform to conduct trade, and what's even funnier is that it proclaims to be a champion of the SEZ's, Special Economic Zones. The cash-strapped economy has suffered billions of dollars in losses in the form of exports, as a bulk of textile companies have shut down operations indefinitely. Pakistan can't afford to import natural gas to power its industries. Many areas throughout the country don't have power, and there's also a widespread water shortage. The price of fuel has risen by up to 80%. The imports have closed down, there's a shortage of critical medical supplies, and people are really struggling to make ends meet. It's harrowing to know that the current inflation rate has hit an all-time historic high of 31.5%. We're worse off than Sri Lanka when the nation defaulted and went into turmoil. I'm afraid there was never a long-term vision and strategy for Pakistan, and on the verge of economic default, a stagnating currency, depleting foreign reserves, and high inflation, Pakistan has to contend with numerous issues to just get back on its feet. Having a long-term vision comes way after that. With rotting external and fiscal sectors and skyrocketing domestic prices, along with a dwindling exchange rate, these massive imbalances have further been damaged by the onslaught of the issues caused by the devastating floods in 2022, displacing millions of people and destroying billions of dollars worth of crops. Moreover, thanks to distortive governance and dismal political strategies, which also include long periods of exchange rate freezing, indefinite import bans, delayed IMF loan programs, and zero credit worthiness levels, Pakistan has lost the right to access foreign capital markets. Simply put, we're frighteningly close to being economically isolated. With inflation growing, crossing the 30% mark per annum, Pakistan has a sovereign debt amounting to $250 billion. And according to the State Bank of Pakistan, the government has made numerous other external debt payments amounting to $9 billion. leaving less than $3 billion in foreign reserves. This isn't even enough to cover the country's import bills for 6 weeks. A lot of Pakistani citizens have now begun to withdraw vast amounts of their personal dollar savings, far away from the prying eye of the central banking system, leading to a freeze of foreign currency imposed by the current Finance Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Ishaq Dar. Moreover, S&P Global, a renowned international credit rating agency, has downgraded Pakistan's creditworthiness rating to negative. Globally, Pakistan is the 52nd country with a crippling debt crisis. One of the most critical issues the country currently faces is the repayment of its circular debt, which at present accounts for 3.5% of the country's GDP. The second biggest challenge is overcoming the country's inability to service external debt. Pakistan's nasty habit of borrowing has now created a huge vortex, which has further dragged its economy to the brink of destruction and a bleak economic aftermath. With stupendous interest payments on borrowing combined with its circular debt, it's safe to say that 2023-24 will bring more inflation and devastation to the Pakistani people, who are already crippled by continuously rising domestic prices. Owing to rising inflation rates, which are in the double digits, the real disposable incomes of the Pakistani people have suffered a drastic blow in the past several months. For example, a median income of 40,000 Pakistani rupee just 10 to 11 months ago now equates to less than 20,000 Pakistani rupee or $70 as per current exchange rates. According to the EDI, Economic Discomfort Index, Pakistan was at 19.7% in the March of 2022. Today, the country stands at 36.7%. This indicates that the country is suffering a pretty harrowing decrease in providing a decent standard of living. Coupled with rising food prices, shortages of essential food items, and skyrocketing energy bills, people earning a median income of 50,000 to 100,000 Pakistani rupee can never hope to save any money and have to often borrow money to pay for bills. As per the latest fiscal report published by the State Bank of Pakistan, it has been determined that the country was on the verge of propelling its GDP rate by 6% in 2021-2022. However, the report mentioned that in January 2023, the total GDP of the country was reduced to 2% and may even go lower in 2023-2024. Similarly, the report also mentioned the unemployment rate of Pakistan, which stood in 4.5% in 2020 and 4.35% towards the end of 2022. Today, the total unemployment rate has reached 6.2%, and it is estimated that up to 12 million Pakistanis have lost their jobs or are unemployed. This has further fueled the growing rate of street and violent crimes, primarily due to a harrowing lack of law and order throughout the country. Pakistan has essentially become a banana republic. As per the 2022 report published by the Bureau of Immigration and Overseas Employment, it was revealed that more than 750,000 Pakistanis went abroad in hopes of greener pastures and a quality standard of living. Amongst them were over 5,000 engineers, 2,000 IT specialists, 6,000 plus accountants, and 2,500 doctors. This has clearly left a gaping hole when you talk about the contribution of future generations to the growth and prosperity of Pakistan. And to be honest, this massive brain drain isn't going to stop anytime soon. Owing to inflation, petty political disputes, growing economic uncertainties, and dismal policies, people have lost confidence in the political sovereignty of the country. And with the healthcare and education sector being ripped apart, there's really no hope for Pakistani families to grow and prosper in their homeland. There are simply no opportunities available. More than 60% of Pakistan's population is under the age of 30, so we're a particularly young country. Plus, Pakistan is ranked 10th as having the largest labor force in the world. So yes, the country's skill development and job creation opportunities have much to be desired considering the poverty rate in the country is 37.2%. This means the bulk of the population is living below the poverty line. According to a global research report on tax evasion published by Ipsos, it was revealed that in 2021-2022, the shadow economy of Pakistan evaded taxes that could have easily accounted for at least 40% of the country's GDP. This is how much money was stolen. The amount of hundreds of billions of rupees could have otherwise been used for a slew of public sector projects, helping to increase the standard of living of the common man in the country. As per the report, there are 5 sectors that resulted in annual tax evasion that amounted to just north of 310 billion rupees. These sectors included tea, more than 30 billion rupees, tobacco, 80 billion rupees, lubricants, 90 billion rupees, medicines, 40 billion rupees, and real estate, 60 billion rupees. If you look at it from a broader perspective, the real question that people should be asking is whether law enforcement and the government has any real intention of stopping tax evasion. There's a clear lack of willingness to put the necessary stops in place. Instead, we see that there are policies in place that offer subsidies to the rich instead of the people who really need them. Pakistan is on the verge of collapse, a collapse that will take decades to recover from. What is now needed is political harmony and stronger, more honest bilateral relations with the country's allies. The political elite has to put their differences aside to come to common terms. We need stronger and more resilient political reforms, giving power to the people and industries of Pakistan. The country needs legitimate leadership that has the means and the intention to weed out corruption from the roots, restore law and order, make judicial reforms, and offer sustainable employment opportunities for both unskilled and skilled labour. We need responsible governance along with meaningful citizenship engagement to prosper or at least jumpstart the Pakistani economy into motion. So that's it for today. Keep following us for more interesting videos.